assured of our full commitment to the successful execution of your mandate, including from our position as a Vice President of this session. I also acknowledge your predecessor for his sterling stewardship of the General Assembly during his presidency of hope. This year, Jamaica celebrates 60 years of independence and membership in the UN. We reflect with pride on the significant contributions which Jamaica, a small island developing state, has made to global efforts for peace, development, and human rights, as well as in the field of music, culture, and sports. At home, our Diamond Jubilee of Independence has provided the impetus for us to reignite our nation for greatness. It is our intention to bring that same energy to the work of the 77th session. We gather as the world faces unprecedented overlapping crises, the ongoing impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in the Ukraine, inflation, debt, energy and food insecurity, and natural disasters fueled by climate change. We do not all have the same capacity to withstand and recover from shocks. Indeed, recovery from shocks has been uneven, and there has been further widening of pre-existing development inequalities. As we search for solutions, let us acknowledge the differentiated needs and vulnerability of all members of our global family. Small island developing states and some middle-income countries have particular vulnerability to climate shocks and external economic shocks, which have an oversized impact relative to their national budgets, and often crippling impact on their infrastructure. For small island developing states to survive economic shocks and recover lost and damaged infrastructure, they are forced to borrow, only to be confronted again in a few years with another round of natural disasters, which could wipe out significant infrastructure and force us to add to our already high debt. As I speak, I am monitoring a tropical storm system that is threatening the Caribbean. Jamaica believes that a comprehensive and targeted approach to accessing development finance is needed. We fully support the work of the high-level panel developing the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index. We eagerly anticipate an era of truly equitable access to concessional financing and other funding support, which will enable us to invest in resilient infrastructure and create fiscal buffers so that we can withstand and recover quickly from the next economic, health, or climate shock with little borrowing. Without the acknowledgement of vulnerability as a basis for access to finance, small island developing states will continue to struggle and will be unable to achieve the SDGs. Even as we call for reforms of the global financial architecture to account for vulnerability, Jamaica is exercising great fiscal discipline. It has been a long and hard struggle, but we have lowered our debt to GDP ratio from stratospheric levels a decade ago, and we continue to pursue policies to ensure we can drive down our debt. We are building fiscal buffers To ensure that we can respond quickly to shocks, we are working with our development partners using innovative financing tools, such as floating a catastrophe bond, to ensure against climate disasters. But most importantly, we are mainstreaming climate resilience in all our infrastructure investments. Mr. President, small island developing states like Jamaica are always mindful that despite our best efforts to improve our fiscal management and debt sustainability, a single climate event could wipe out 100% of our economy in a few hours. Climate change is an immediate existential threat for small island developing states like Jamaica. Concerted action to slow down and halt temperature rise is literally a question of our survival. While we continue to develop our own resilience and play our part in mitigating climate change, we cannot, by our action alone, change the trajectory. Jamaica looks forward to the convening of COP27 in Egypt later this year. We call on all countries to meet their commitments and contributions to climate targets. And we call on the developed world to increase their commitments and ambitions in climate financing, particularly for adaptation and loss and damage. As an island, Jamaica is keenly attuned to the importance of protecting and sustainably using our ocean and marine resources. We recognize that urgent action is needed to address the health and sustainability of the oceans. Jamaica joins the global community in celebrating the 40th anniversary of the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, which opened for adoption in Montego Bay, Jamaica on the 10th of December, 1982. The convention is a testament to the power of multilateralism. As the constitution for the ocean, the convention has yielded immense benefit since its entry into force. Since 1994, Jamaica has welcomed delegates to the International Seabed Authority who have brought to life the important deliberations on the preservation and exploitation of resources of the International Seabed Authority, which forms part of the common heritage of mankind. Mr. President, the pandemic has made clear that major inclusive transformation is required in technology and innovation for developing countries. While all countries suffered during the pandemic, they didn't all suffer equally. A country's economic resilience was often a reflection of how digitally advanced it was. Many countries lag far behind in digital access, penetration, and capability. We must make a priority of bridging the digital divide, both within and between countries, to create a level playing field and to spur transformation of critical sectors of the economy and the society. As the world prepares for an even more digitally engaged future, we must take effective steps to protect cyberspace and its physical infrastructure to ensure that it is safely and securely available to all users across the world. Cybercrimes are an increasing threat, and international cooperation is required to deal with this in a comprehensive manner. Jamaica fully supports the work underway in the UN to elaborate a cybercrime treaty and to work towards guidelines and a framework for cyber security. Mr. President, several countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are facing an epidemic of crime and violence. Since the pandemic and the disruption in education, challenges with mental health are being increasingly expressed in violent ways. The propensity to resolve conflict or cope with social and mental stresses through violence requires a public health response. And Jamaica has not only engaged in global initiatives such as the Partnership to End Violence Against Children, but we have recently empaneled a National Commission on the Prevention of Violence to advise the government on building out an articulated public health and social service response. However, the situation is exponentially complicated and exacerbated by the influx of illegal and unregistered small arms into our country. From organized transnational criminal enterprises to street-level gangs to the misguided youth in the inner city, the availability of guns is driving an ever-increasing homicide rate. In the same way that a war on drugs is being prosecuted, in which we have been faithful partners in policing what comes through our waters or leaves our shores, there now must be a war on guns. Jamaica does not manufacture guns, but our population suffers from the effects of widely available guns. The countries that manufacture weapons that are available to the public must implement stronger measures to ensure that those weapons do not end up on the streets and in the hands of people for whom they were not intended. In the same way that there is a concern about illegal drugs on the streets of the rich countries, there must be concern about guns on the streets of developing countries like Jamaica. Mr. President, the situation in our sister CARICOM country of Haiti is one of deep concern for Jamaica and the region. The challenges there, political, economic, environmental, and social, are long-standing challenges, and they present serious obstacles to peace and the dignity of the Haitian people. And indeed, they present challenges for the region, particularly in crime and other security concerns. We support a Haitian-led process to arrive at sustainable solutions to the challenges, and we are committed, together with CARICOM and the international community, to moving beyond just standing with Haiti, to working more closely with Haiti to provide consistent and meaningful support. Mr. President, Jamaica also joins the call once again for the discontinuation of the economic, commercial, and financial embargo against our closest Caribbean neighbor, Cuba. Mr. President, we cannot properly make use of this watershed moment to benefit the future without adequately addressing the past. Jamaica reaffirms its determination to further the call for international recognition of reparatory justice as a necessary path to healing, restoration of dignity, and progress for people of African descent. The world cannot turn a blind eye to the systemic imbalances which persist after centuries of exploitation. If our moral standards today on which we claim a higher civilization, acknowledges that actions in the past, which generated wealth for some by depriving others of their freedom, were wrong, then that same moral standard must lead those who benefited from the wrongs of the past and claim a higher civilization today to repair that which their morality now acknowledges to be an injustice. There is an inescapable duty for economic redress, for historical injustices, and recognition of the dignity of affected states and people. The arc of international morality would not have completed its bend for the peoples of the African diaspora without open and inclusive exchanges on the dispensation of reparatory justice. We recognize the complexities associated with this sensitive issue. Yet, as with all complex global challenges, we must summon the determination to take the bold and creative steps to meet the moment. Mr. President, since attaining independence 60 years ago, multilateralism has been a core principle of Jamaica's foreign policy. It continues to underpin our cooperation with member states and other stakeholders within the United Nations system. Transformative global solutions will only thrive within a robust multilateral framework. The current global political and security environment is cause for great alarm. We have witnessed a nuclear-armed superpower, permanent member of the Security Council, acting with impunity to launch a military offensive against its neighbor. Russia's military incursion in the Ukraine can only be condemned as a flagrant violation of the UN Charter. We must never return to the days when military might is considered right. Jamaica strongly cautions against actions which could signal the demise of a peaceful multilateral order. Mr. President, I commend the Secretary General and his team on the initiatives undertaken within his purview to fulfill relevant mandates. For their part, member states must also address long-standing issues of reform and restructuring, including the Security Council. This critical organ must work more transparently and responsibly, be more representative of the world of today, and be more prepared for the world of tomorrow. A rotating seat for small island developing states will ensure that the unique perspectives, challenges, and contributions of small island developing states are permanently available to the Council, improving the quality of its service and work for our people. Mr. President, as a highly tourism-dependent country in the most tourism-dependent region in the world, Jamaica has invested heavily in building resilience in the tourism sector. During the pandemic, we pioneered the introduction of resilient corridors on the island, which served as a focused, protocol-based and data-driven blueprint for safely reopening the tourism sector. The corridors assisted greatly in fast-tracking the recovery of our tourism sector. We have been engaging countries across the world in our efforts to bolster resilience in global tourism, and Jamaica is proposing the official designation of February 17th annually as Global Tourism Resilience Day. This annual commemoration would serve to encourage a consistent examination of resilience building in the tourism sector in the face of persisting global disruptions to sustainable tourism and sustainable development. We encourage the global community to work with us towards commemorating the first Global Tourism Resilience Day in 2023. In closing, Mr. President, while our current reality presents complex challenges, I believe that the capacity and the capabilities exist within this body to overcome our challenges. The gap between challenges we face and solutions which exist or yet to be created is the human will. This assembly is about developing the common global political will to see this as a watershed moment to deploy and accelerate transformative solutions to the interlocking challenges we face. The people of the world are counting on us to lead and work together as one humanity, one love. Jamaica is committed to doing our part in this, our 60th year of membership, and in the years ahead. I thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister, Minister of Defense, Economic Growth and Job Creation of Jamaica for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Alexander Schallenberg, Federal Minister of European and International Affairs of Austria.